Hello, Vanakkam, and welcome to Sudarshan's podcast. I'm Sudarshan, the host. Today I have Nivas Ravichandran, who is the founding marketeer / head of marketing at Spendflo, one of the companies in Chennai I look up to. Hey Nivas, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. Yeah, I think I should thank one of my employees, Nitilesh, who made that introduction. I think it was sweet enough, and I hadn't noticed the podcast before, but then when I looked at the number of episodes that you've done, tremendous work at such a young age. So kudos to you on that. And I was like, yeah, why not? Like I think, and it didn't feel like it was connected to anything. You just did it with your own passion. So I felt, hey, you know what? Sounds interesting. Let's go for it.
Yeah. So I would also like to thank Nitilesh for this. I think he must be maybe 1-2 years younger than me, but much smarter than me.
Very. Yeah.
Yes. So we were recently talking about, I think, a bunch of other people, and he told me, dude, like, why don't you host Nivas on the show? Then things happened.
Right.
For the audience, this episode, we plan to talk about how Nivas built the marketing function at Spendflo from scratch. And also, he has an admirable career, right? I think to give you a context, he got graduated in 2013 or 14, Nivas? 13, yep. So it's been like 11 years, more than a decade in marketing and sales, but a really great career. Like if you look at his LinkedIn, you might know. So, and one more thing, like I look up to Spendflo is events. So we'll talk about them, how he, yes, that event channel and more into it. So, shall we get in, Nivas?
Go for it. Let's go ahead.
Yeah, like for audience, like give us some context about who you are and like what you're doing.
Sure. I currently head marketing at Spendflo today. I actually was the second marketer who joined at Spendflo. Like there was one. I think I'll talk about him as well. We had a content marketer who we had hired, so he was actually the founding marketer. I joined in like after him, so to head marketing. So I've spent about 2 years at Spendflo today, and prior to that, I used to be at Freshworks. I spent about 7 years, close to 7 years at Freshworks. Most of my SaaS marketing learnings come from Freshworks School of Thought. So honestly, I started off my career in sales and business development. And then only a year and a half later, I was like, okay, you know what? I wanted to do something which is a little more scalable. Sales is I felt you had to keep putting that effort to be able to close deal and bring in revenue. But I wanted to do something where you're able to put in efforts which will scale slightly more exponentially. And that's, I think, when I realized I had the understanding of marketing and I wanted to jump in. So my first marketing stint was at a B2C company that actually got acquired by Fresh Desk back then. So Girish Mathrubudhan, the former CEO of Freshworks, was it actually sounds very different to say former CEO of Freshworks. So G was an angel investor at this company, and we got lucky that it got acquired by Fresh Desk back then.
Company?
It was called Frill, FRILP. It was in the offline to online commerce space where we were trying to, I think it was slightly ahead of its time, where we were trying to bring chat for a lot of the offline commerce, like what Instagram today does from a chat standpoint, right? Like we wanted to kind of bring that where people, businesses could interface with end users from a chat standpoint. We couldn't monetize it. I think we struggled how to position it and things like that. Today, I think probably the acquisition was one of the best things that happened for a lot of us, where we were able to understand.
Founders of Growfin, am I right?
Yes, correct. He is also. Yeah, they're also. So Raja and Arvind, were part of Frill that got acquired by Freshdesk. And now they went ahead and started another company called Growth.
So what happened then? Like after Philip, then Freshworks.
So Freshworks, initially, the joke was, honestly, we thought we wouldn't really last in a B2B company because especially when you look at in 2014, this is 2014, right? Like, I mean, the more cooler companies were probably the Flipkarts of the world, the Olas of the world, Swiggy's. No one even knew Freshdesk or Freshdesk back then. And people used to think, oh, it's a customer support company, right? Like, I mean, or a IT services company. And no one understood what we were selling. Even for me, I started selling into this category called IT service management, right? Freshservice was the product. I never really understood most of the things with SaaS marketing. Why were people willing to pay for products like this and things like that? It took some time, but a very interesting space today. Freshservice is today the highest grossing product at Freshworks, but never understood that in the first 4 months. I was just doing marketing without honestly understanding a lot of things. But today, I think I feel very embarrassed of the things that I actually did in the first few months, right? I think after a while, maybe like after 6 months, got to learn a lot, experimented, played around. I think that Freshworks really allowed. So first 2 years, I was with the IT service management product called Freshservice. After that, became 2015 August, we joined Freshdesk.
Okay. And before that, they built the product or were they building the product?
Yeah. They had like about, I think, close to a million ARR or little less than a million ARR types. So I joined and I was part of the marketing team, very junior marketer. And then I've always been very interested in the sales space, right? Like, I mean, marketing to sales, right? Because I never understood what marketing to IT service management meant. So I decided to join with the Fresh Sales team.
Sorry to interrupt, but is that acquisition made you switch to marketing, or like you took the decision to?
No. So at Frill itself, I was part of marketing. So Frill itself, I went in as the B2C marketer only. Then when I joined Freshdesk, I joined the Freshservice product marketing team. Yeah, earlier it was called product marketing because we didn't necessarily know what is product marketing, what is not product marketing. But I think at least I didn't know. I think maybe most of my seniors knew, but I didn't know. Then I joined Fresh Sales as their first marketer. Set up like a lot of things from scratch. I thoroughly enjoyed the process there because setting some of the basic landing pages to running campaigns on, say, G2 or collecting reviews and whatever problem we had, we'd be like, yeah, let's go fix this, right? Like, and not necessarily was it a very structured school of thought and things like that. We'd be like, okay, what is burning today? Let's go fix this, right? Like that sort of an approach. Was there for about 2.5, 3 years with that product. After that, the one realization that we had was a lot of the early stage young startups out of the US were not necessarily with Freshworks, were more with some of the other competitors. So this was something that we wanted to solve, where we said, hey, how can we have a lot of the Freshworks products being adopted by fast-growing startups? So we launched something called the startup program or Freshworks for startups, where we decided to give out some credits and make it easy for a lot of the venture-backed startups to adopt Freshworks. So I spent about 2 years over there. It was a mix of partnerships and a marketing role over there because we were also trying to work with a lot of the VCs and the accelerators to kind of drive adoption of it. So overall, like about 6.5, 7 years over there. Got a little, I think after a while, it got a little bored for me. I wanted to kind of, I think also this question where, especially when you're working at a large company, right? Like you have this question saying, is like I did a lot of campaigns, or I did a lot of marketing initiatives. Some of them worked really well, some of them did not. And even those some, you always have a question saying, did it work because of me or did it work because of the company itself, right? Because because Freshworks is a big brand. When you do an event, say you get like so many people, if you're able to bring in so many audiences, it's generally a mix of both. But that question immediately strikes you saying, hey, are you really contributing, or is it just a brand which is having a very strong pull, right? And I also had a lot of learnings from Freshworks, but also things that I wanted to do very differently at a new company, right? Like obviously Freshworks has grown to a stage. So I followed one of my managers who's now the co-founder at Spendflo, Rajiv Ramanan. So I just decided to follow him. And I reached out and he was like, dude, come on board. Let's do this, right? Like I think he was my manager for the last 3 years at Freshworks as well. So he knew my strengths and what I was good at. So, and I think our partnership also really worked, where we had a no-nonsense sort of an approach. We'd be like, yeah, let's just do this, right? And I think we also pushed our limits with each other, and we had like good battles against each other as well, like nice friendly banters and battles. So that helped. And I joined over here. So very early stage, first few like 4 or 5 customers of sorts. When I joined, came on board. So then we raised a seed and a Series A. Seed in 2022, Series A in 2023. We're growing pretty well. We're north of 100 customers today, primarily focused in the North America market. North of 100 customers. I'm not allowed to reveal revenue or anything, but yeah.
Cool. Right. So, like, how exactly it happened, Nivas? Like, when did you join? Is that after a year or later when Spendflo started? I thought like you came with the founder, started the company.
The founders were kind of trying to play around with a lot of things, right? Like, I mean, like different ideas and stuff like that. And I actually knew the CEO, the other co-founder as well, Siddharth Sridhar, and we've known each other for some time. And I used to joke to him saying, dude, I think if I come on board, I'm going to spend. So we're going to need money. So when you raise, let me know, right? Like I think that was the thing that I was joking to him in a very casual way. But once Rajiv came on board, I think I had a lot more just comfort as well from a moving standpoint. So I joined close to a year later after the launch of the product. I joined in May 2022. Yeah.
So that was done by the founders, and later you came on board.
Correct. The first few were done by like founder-led sales. After which I came on board. We started the more interesting challenge with respect to Spendflo was, I think Freshworks always played in very established categories, right? Like you always played in a CRM market or a help desk market or a IT service management market, where if the TAM, I think Girish says this beautifully, right? Like if the TAM, we only play in very well-established markets where there is a large beast or a large competitor who is like priced very heavily and is keeping a lot of customers unhappy, right? I think we've been very specific about some of the markets we picked at Freshworks. And but over here, it's a very different game, right? Like, I mean, no one knew about this category. Very less people were aware of, I think the problem existed, but not necessarily from a solution or a product awareness standpoint, right? So I had to tear up a lot of my learnings from Freshworks and restart from scratch, which was a beautiful challenge. And I think we've done a decent job, touchwood, of it, of building brand, building, say, awareness, and also establishing ourselves a trusted entity, right? I think today we've come a good way. We had to do a lot more of brand play, where even very small attention to detail around brand was very, very important.
One thing I really wondered is, like you said, right? You worked on a fresh service. Of course, we are little similar to Spendflo. I want completely same. After that, you worked completely on fresh sales and other GTM products, right? Now,
Right.
come back, totally sell to a new persona, to
Right.
finance leaders out
Right.
there. How it
Right.
happened? Because you got used to those folks,
Right.
seen almost like 5, 6 years, right?
Right.
Out and talking to the new people.
Right. I think the challenge was both IT service management as well as finance have a slightly similar approach towards buying products. The funny story was at Freshworks, I've never even spoken to my internal finance people, right? Whenever finance reached out to me, I thought I was always in trouble, right? Like, I think I was like, oh shit, have I messed up something with the reimbursement? Have I done something wrong? Have I messed something with my IT filing? Or like, I mean, whenever like anyone from my, like, and it's not that I didn't have like a good relationship. I knew them as friends, but when they pinged me on my internal, say, Slack or anything, I used to be like, shit, what did I do? Right? Like, I mean, that sort of thing. And I don't think like my Freshworks early days used to have a head of finance. I don't think I even had like a word conversation with him, right? Like if he crossed by, I'd probably like be like, oh shit, okay, finance, right? Like I don't want to like get into trouble or something like that. But over here, we had to sell to finance, a very interesting, challenging persona, because they're very calculative in their steps. They think of 4 steps ahead. They look at all the extra criteria before buying products, and they don't. It's also there's I wouldn't say lack of trust, but I think they're very, very calculative on who they trust, because if something goes wrong in the company, it's finance that gets blamed very quickly, right? Like if something goes wrong with an audit, finance gets into trouble. So for us to be able to sell into finance was very, very hard initially for me to even understand that persona. But I think what happened was being as close to the persona or the customer, right? I also got a decent chance to spend enough time in the US with my decision makers. We were able to host a lot of these small roundtables and dinners. In the early days, I used to try faking it as well, right? Where I used to act as if I am an expert in finance, right? But then I realized, because I didn't want to sound dumb to them, because I was also like, because when you're speaking to them and when you don't know certain terminologies, you don't want to appear dumb, so you'll try faking it. But then I think something I realized, and I think I spoke about it in another webinar or a podcast recently. Now, right, like in the last 1.5 years, I've been a lot more candid, saying, look, I think whenever we've been hosting dinners or roundtables, and whenever I'm interacting with finance, I'd be like, hey, by the way, I'm just I'm the marketing guy, right? Like I have zero understanding of finance. I'm going to be the facilitator of this conversation, and I'm probably going to ask the dumb questions here. And they actually, one thing that I realized was, and no one's an expert in all fields, right? Like, and they don't expect you to be. What marketers end up doing, marketers or even salespeople, right? Like end up trying to act as the experts, right? You don't necessarily have to know everything, but even if there is one domain that you have to be very, very strong about, and if you're strong on that, be authentic on that front, right? Like you don't necessarily need to sound like a thought leader in who no one is, right? So that's the thing. When selling to or marketing to finance, I think they love data, right? Like they love data-driven content or data-driven reports or things like that. So I think we did a lot of hacks around trying to provide them those sort of content or those sort of formats, and that worked pretty well in our favor.
Can you give me some examples? What sort of data kind of content you?
So we did like at least a couple of reports and like guides on how to more like, because I think finance needs sometimes don't necessarily have the playbooks for every problem they're solving, right? So something that we decided to do is create like a lot of the how-to playbooks, right? Like hey, how to optimize your SaaS bets, how to negotiate your finance tech stack, and things like that. We also went with a lot of good reports, right? Like, because I think we do a lot of analysis on SaaS spends by itself. We created something called the State of SaaS Buying Report, where we surveyed about 200 odd finance leaders and asked them, hey, what are your challenges? What are you good at? I mean, what are you facing struggles with? What are things that are easy for you? What are things that are hard? How much are you spending on your SaaS? How much is AI adoption? And different things like that, right? And they always like to like benchmark themselves with other finance leaders from a metrics standpoint, right? Like there's so many SaaS metrics guides out there. If you just search for SaaS metrics, right? Like there are like so many people who talk about it, and finance really cares about, okay, am I doing good or am I not good enough, right? Like I think marketers, the problem is there's still metrics in marketing as well, right? Like I mean, every category that you approach has very different varied metrics, right? Like I mean, the CAC for you need not necessarily be the CAC for another player in another market, or a customer acquisition cost or a lifetime value from a marketing standpoint. But finance is very specific, saying, okay, these type of companies, we need to be at this number, right? Like from a metrics standpoint, so they want to be very on top of their numbers, and I think we leverage that very well within.
Awesome, cool, right? So I think we'll start from the scratch now. I think we spoke about the people who Spendflo is selling to, and of course, I think we missed about the first founding marketeer. We'll start from that and talk about what happened on laying out the basics. I mean, like we'll talk about how you build the marketing function in Spendflo, the team.
Yeah, I'll talk about some of the few marketers out there that we hired, and I think almost all of them are with Spendflo even today, right? The first person that joined before me was this guy called Ajay Ramamurthy, content marketer. I think something that I realized a little later, even today, right, is someone who really believes in the company, and someone who believes in and is okay to pick up different problems at different points of time, and is just willing to fight for the company, right? I think he's done different things at different points of time. Today, he's leading all of our organic efforts at Spendflo, and I think he's always picked it up with a smile, and very no nonsense guy. You give the problem to him, he'll take a little bit of time, but once he figures, he'll just keep going at it. Like most of the times, he'll be thinking about something, he'll be staring at a problem, and he'll go after finding a thing, right? I think you need people who really believe in the company and the vision. And something that I recently, like I was speaking to a founder, right? Like startups always have good days, bad days, very ugly days as well, right? It's a process of self-selection, right? You opt in to being a part of the company, right? Like not necessarily will every company become a Freshworks or become a ChargeBee or a Zoho or any of those big companies. Some days are going to be hard, some days are going to be great, but there are few people who decide to stick on to that journey and say, okay, you know what, irrespective of the day, I will stick on, right? Like, so those are the type of people. I think the other person is we spoke earlier before the podcast began. We had Karthikeyan, who's my he joined in as a lead designer. Today he's my head of visual design. Very solid guy. Came in from fully filmy, very different background, but I think truly set any of the beautiful designs or the design benchmarks that you see at Spendflo. I think are all being done by him and his team today. We still have like a lot of banter, fight. I think you don't necessarily need someone who is a yes master to you, who has to keep pushing their like views as well. And I also we keep having differences in terms of, hey, which is good design versus which is bad design. Not necessarily bad design, but more like, hey, which is the better one to pick. But I think at the end, we decide to just commit together, right? Like I think you need people, irrespective of the different like conversations, heated arguments. We've left, I think there was this one day when him and I were having a conversation, and the entire, we were having it in the bay, and the team really thought we were fighting, right? It was so heated, right? Like, because we were just arguing and we knew each other. But then we realized that it actually hit the team, and they were like, "Are you both okay?" And like the team came and checked in on us, and we were like, "No, we were just talking, right?" Like, but then it sounded so heated that others felt it that way. And then I was telling him later, saying, "I think maybe we should just take it to a meeting room and just have this fight a little more harder, but not necessarily because the team assumes that we are fighting, right? Like, which is not the case. We were just having a very good debate on whether, hey, should we go with this or should we not go with that? I think another strong marketer that we've brought on board is because we're going to be speaking about events, is this person called Nitya Bhaskar. She today a very young marketer when we brought her on board, 2-3 years of experience. But today I think she owns all of our growth efforts, and again, very, very self-driven, superior attention to detail. Like will handle like multiple events with like a smile on her face, and like very chirpy. I think you need people who can just pull themselves up on a daily basis and show up to work and be able to contribute. I think I'm genuinely entirely super proud of the overall marketing team that we've built here at Spendflo. We've received a lot of appreciation. That's what I think it all owes to the team, right? Like, I think I've gotten lucky bringing in good marketers. I think they've stuck on, and like we've had like a great journey so far.
I'm glad that you're like appreciating people in the public. Like, it's a great quality.
I think this, like, we going to get like reached out. They're going to get poached sometimes. But I think, as I mentioned earlier, there are some people who are going to believe in this with us and stick on. There are some people who might get another opportunity and might want to move on. I think it's important for us to give them the due recognition. I think it's just the due recognition.
Yeah. So, like, I have some couple of follow-up questions here. So, Karthik from Fully Filmy, for listeners, Fully Filmy is a film merchandise brand. They sell T-shirts, mobile cases, more from the house of designers, right? I would say. And fantastic designer. I used to follow his work for almost 7-8 years since I'm into design. But I mean, like, what made you take that call? Because he'll be taking care of decks to posters to everything, right? In Spendflo. But what made you to take the call with Karthik?
I think we generally have like a slightly extensive assignment that we provide, right? And his brother also worked at Freshworks and still works at Freshworks. He knew me as well, so I think he came in with I don't think it was a recommendation from his brother, but it was like, my brother's mentioned a lot about you and things like that, right? So I think good design speaks for itself, and someone who can communicate why they're doing it. And he had a very good portfolio as well. And we also, I think SaaS talent in Chennai is only growing so far, right? I mean, only so much. But I think it's important to bring in talent from other parts of the industry as well into SaaS and be able to sell globally. When we identified, I think we call him Karthi internally. Karthi was a no-brainer for us, right? Like, it was a very good hire, like, to bring on board and be able to. I think there are small elements that you'll just have to set context on, saying, hey, why is it needed this way, and like, just give them the right direction and good examples of what good SaaS design or SaaS visual design looks like. I think they very quickly pick it up. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What was his reaction when you wanted to use pink in your visuals?
I think he hated me. I think both me. It was actually my CEO who's still very persistent on using the color. Siddharth is very persistent on the pink. Karthi and I still, I mean, not still, but I think until last 6 months or a year, we used to still crib about using pink in our colors. It actually helped, to be honest. Like, initially, whenever I said, hey, can I have a variant? He'll be like, look, you gave me pink. I can't do much, right? Like Karthi and I have banters on that. But I think over a period, it genuinely helped a lot. And also for someone who worked on a lot of blue, right? Like at Freshworks had blue. And majority, 99% of the companies will use dark blue or a variant of blue in their colors. So for us, playing around with pink was very, very hard. And it was also very easy to even pick future designers after that, right? Because we gave them the assignment. Very few came back with good design playing around with pink. Because pink is a very tricky color. Even a little, it could appear as a feminine product, right? Like, I mean, when you go into a slightly lighter shade of pink or things like that, right? So you have to know the right balance and ensure what are the adjacent colors that you can use for pink. Today, I think Karthi has kind of accepted that, hey, you know what, pink is going to be our color. And today, I believe he appreciates the usage of pink in our design.
One thing that came to my mind while talking about this is, I think Jason Lemkin used to say that be orange among blues or something, right?
Correct.
It may be like be pink among blues. That's what working for Spendflo, I think.
Right.
Yes.
We used to. I think we said we'll be the pink in the world of blues, right? Like something like that.
And you said about, spoke about Nitya. Told that she has like very like 2-3 years of experience. Like, what was her background? Like, you wanted to pull in for events, then like why did you pick her?
Right. So we necessarily did not pull her in specifically for events. I think it just naturally happened. We generally hire people who are a little more. So I'm a strong believer of this concept called, like, especially in early stage companies, right? You can't have super strong specialists who will not be able to do like a couple of other things, right? Because every single time there are going to be like initiatives or campaigns where the marketer needs to pull up their sleeve to be able to run it, right? Like, and it can't be like, oh shucks, I've never done this before, right? Like 99% of the cases, it's going to be that way, right? Where you've not done a virtual summit, you've not done a large event, you've not done a dinner, you've not done we recently did a pickleball game, right? Like, we hosted a pickleball game in SF. So most of the times it's going to be that, but the willingness to just go bold and play to your strengths and execute is very important. Nitya came in from a company called Match Street then. She had SaaS background, and I think her assignment clearly stood out. Her attention to detail, her design, the depth to which she went, I think was a clear win. And I think I still remember the day when I sent it to the founders. As soon as I got the assignment, I was like, I think I found my growth marketer. There she is, right? Like even before we even spoke to her. So once we brought her on board, she's genuinely just pulled herself up through very and for us, events is a very, very important like a charter, right? So today, last year, I think 2023, we hosted about close to 40 events in North America and UK for finance leaders, and we see good pipeline. We see good like brand awareness kicking in from events, and majority of this was executed by Nitya and her. Like, we helped her out, but I think most of it was just spearheaded by her. And I think there are tough days. There've been like really like there are days when you feel burnt out, but I think she's someone who's pulled her up, and she's had a very good trajectory as well. We've just made her a manager. She has about 4-5 years of experience today, and we felt she did really, really well, and we've made her a manager in the company.
How many folks in the marketing team now?
Today we're about, including me, we're 10, including creative. So Karthi has about 3 people with him. We have Nandita, who heads content for us, and then we have someone for demand, and we have Nitya for growth, and someone is reporting into her.
Cool, right? So, like, when you joined Spendflo like a couple of years back, what was your thought? you're getting into a segment where, like, of course, a bunch of competitors there, where they might have established things. And what you wanted to do, like, where you wanted to like focus on events, content, PR, like, what was your first, I mean, like, plan or like responsibilities for the first 6 months?
Right. I think any marketer who joins like a very early stage SaaS company, right? Like probably like the first marketer types. The question that you need to ask is, hey, is this an established category or is it a category creation play, right? So established category means there's a lot of search volume. Players already exist. There are enough number of competitors who are very specifically playing in that space, right? Like we had probably 3 competitors in the space. The space was very nascent. We had to do a lot of solution awareness and product awareness to kick in, right? And our search, the overall volume in search for the category itself was very, very minimal, right? Like, and we had to probably go after competitors to be able to, and also they were also very, very young back then, so we didn't necessarily have like a lot of search volume for their keywords as well. So the playbooks that I knew at Freshworks didn't necessarily work here, right? Like from a Google search, both SEO as well as ads standpoint. So, but I think the good part was we knew who the decision maker was. It was finance leaders, right? Like and greater than 30 grand ACV as well, right? I mean, so it's not like a small product, small ARR deal. Like say Freshworks was mostly in the $5,000 and above space, right? But for us, any deal was north of $35,000, right? So even if we did an event at say $5,000 and we're able to bring in 2 deals into the pipeline and one of them closed, we knew that, okay, you know what, there's a significant revenue that we were able to add from these events, right? So I think it had like the first few, we obviously made like a lot of mistakes, burnt our fingers and tried like a couple of formats. It necessarily did not work. Like the first event that we did, we thought, right? Like, I mean, because these are CFOs and finance leaders, we had to host it at a 5-star hotel. So we were like, yeah, prime location, great, like a view and things like that. So we picked like the 39th floor of a Marriott hotel in SF, right? Like, very expensive. For about 20 people, it costed about $15,000, right? Like very expensive from a unit economics standpoint. We had lesser turnout as well because it was probably our first event. We did partner with someone, but we realized we probably didn't have a lot of playbooks in place to promote it and get the right audience. But after that, we were like, hey, this is not going to be scalable, right? Like we can't do events in this budget. Then we're gonna burn out very quickly. Then we played around. We kept experimenting, right? Like saying, okay, can we do it at this sort of a venue, that sort of a venue? Can we do it at an office space? Can we not do it like indoors, right? So we kept playing around with different formats from an event standpoint. And then once we knew a couple of formats that were working, we were like, yeah, let's rinse and repeat as much as we can in different cities, different formats. And today, I think it's an engine, right? Like I think this is a very important thing, right? Like a lot of the times you can try a marketing initiative, right? Unless it becomes repeatable, it's not necessarily an engine, right? So once you are able to see consistent either pipeline or leads, top of the funnel leads from a quarter to quarter or a month on month basis, it's not necessarily an engine. So first, if you have an initiative, try it out with like about say for 3 months or 6 months or whatever time it takes, depending on how long is your sales cycle and things like that. Once you do that, it becomes an engine. And today, it's actually events is an engine for us at Spendflo.
What are the other channels helping your pipeline in Spendflo?
Organic works today. We've put in our efforts and organic works. Paid search as well as paid social is also kicking in.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I can't reveal more than that. It'll be a little, but we do have like a couple of other channels, but I will probably just refrain from answering that. We're still a young company, so I don't want to give it away too much. Yeah.
Great. But you told that Nivas, that you tried a couple of experiments in the beginning, but that didn't work out. Can you talk about them, like any like 2 or 3 experiments which you did that except events here?
We did try LinkedIn ads in the initial days. We thought, okay, you know what? We know the persona. Let's go after LinkedIn ads, right? We spent a lot of money. We tried running it with an agency that too, because we didn't have like a lot of in-house expertise around. We didn't want to. Again, when you're trying to make an engine work, and if you don't have enough people, always figure out if you can do it with an agency for the first 3 months before it becomes an engine, right? Like if it's an initiative. But you're going to need a lot of internal support to be able to do that, then execute. So that's there. Yeah, I think apart from that, we tried our hand at like building a Slack channel, Slack community for some time. It's not like we've not been successful, but the response could have, like, because we realized there are a lot of Slack communities today out there for finance leaders, and we just didn't want to make it an overkill. So again, it's on a pause today, not necessarily from a fold standpoint. And it's okay to have certain initiatives being paused for some time.
Awesome. Yep. So now I think we spoke more about Spendflo. We'll talk about you now. Yep. So like I said in the beginning, right, you had like amazing career, and a few things I could like from LinkedIn, what I have seen is like you wrote at Hackernoon Inc. 42, I think hosted a couple of few events at SaaS Boomi, and like how it really helped, like events or writing for any
Right. I think was always very into about the community and trying to connect with founders or other marketers or other peers in the network, right? Like I think it's just trying to understand different problem statements. Even today, I speak to founders just to understand their problem statements. And I'll try helping, but mostly I tell them saying, look, there's only so much context I have, so don't take everything with a like as the way I've given it to you, but take it with a pinch of salt and try out a couple of things. But like most of the problem statements excite, but then some are solvable, some are not. So yeah, that's the was always into wanting to become a part of communities in different places, right? I think SaaS Boomi was part of the first edition. Girish connected me to Avinash, and I volunteered for the first 2-3 editions of the SaaS Boomi annual event. Today, I think it's become a way larger initiative. And once I moved out of Freshworks, I think even before that, like for a very long time, I was a single boy. So had a lot of time and didn't know what to do on weekends. So I was like, yeah, let's just find like other things to keep me busy. I think after a while, I realized I wanted to just like focus on a few things and give a lot more time to family as well, from a conscious call and saying, okay, I'll take care of my health, I'll take care of my fitness, I'll take care of my family for some time. So that was the call. Now that I'm not too involved into communities and events, but I still very like I think I speak to a lot of founders, help them out wherever I can. So yeah, initially just probably showed up at almost every event that happened in Chennai or Bangalore. Like was just like, yeah, bored, let's go, right? Like I think if I think I've heard Girish speak at like a lot of the external events so many times that I exactly know after this he's going to probably be saying this, right? Like I mean, because and then like there was this one time when he found me at an external event and he was like, "Why are you here?" Right? And I was like, "Yeah, G, I was just bored." So I thought me and like another colleague of mine, I just dragged him along. Both of us just showed up and it was fun, right? Like I think just understanding what is pitched to is the external world, and seeing our co-founder being like our CEO being looked upon like a demigod sort of a status feels very good, right? Like, and then it's just a learning throughout.
So what will you say to anyone like me or anyone in their mid-20s, whether to like go into these communities or write something or put content on like this? Do you think this works, or maybe like what will your thought about it?
Look, I think it's important to show an initiative, right? I think what I really liked about even you hosting this podcast, right? I mean, I asked you this question ahead, like saying, "Hey, are you monetizing? What is your intent?" And you said, "No, I just didn't. Just wanted to try something." Right? Like, I think that shows an initiative. Even when I showed up for most of these events, or when I wanted to, I showed up for a lot of design meetups. I showed up for a lot of dev meetups. I showed up for a lot of I think I attended these Medrasters. Like, this was 2014 times, and whenever founders or entrepreneurs spoke, right, I just showed up. I think the advice to a lot of the young folks, right, like if you have time at your and if you want to just look at wanting to understand business and problem statements really well, go ahead and network, right? Like, there are a lot of opportunities out there where there are these good meetups that are happening. There are these small groups of people meeting and talking about different challenges, and just get yourself involved. Probably host some of these things if you can, be it a podcast, be it anything, right? Like, be it events, be it any format for that matter. But I think just paying it forward to a community also significantly helps, because here is the thing, right? Like, someone who let's say there are two people, you and another peer of yours, and we know that your podcast exists, right? Like, you said, "Hey, sometimes I'm a little inconsistent," but you've done 64 episodes of this podcast, Sudarshan. That shows a good amount of commitment towards just going at it again and again and again, right? I think for me, I've done, say, LinkedIn, or I've done like being a part of the community, being a part of events, being a part of, like, say, the entrepreneurial, like just working with a lot of founders. It just shows that, okay, you know what, they understand the problem better, right? So be it whichever, especially if you're in GTM, it's not just enough if you know your scope of work. You need to understand how it ties to the business, right? Like, this is probably an important advice to almost any marketer out there, right? If you care about the work, or if you only care about the work you do and not necessarily understand how the business makes money, or who do they sell to, or what is the revenue, how much does a customer value, why do they use you, and things like that, you're going to be a very mediocre marketer if you only care about so much, right? But for any marketer, you need to understand how the business works. The CEOs or the co-founders really appreciate that, right? I think for me as well, like even at Freshworks, I was very I was always trying to ask, like I used to ping Girish with very, like, probably today it was all stupid questions, but like saying, "Gee, why is it this way? Why are we in this?" Like, I used to send him like graphs of like random things saying, "Okay, are we at this number or this number?" and things like that, right? Like, just trying to understand.
Marketeer back then in 2015.
Very this thing. I think it was just curiosity. I'm not saying, "Oh, you need to be doing this," or things like that. Just be curious to understand the space that you are in, right? Like, why does the B2B SaaS space, what is it going through today? What's happening from an AI standpoint and things like that? That generally just helps accelerate your career if you're especially very career focused. I think I still am very have a lot of energy and a lot of want to grow in my career. So
awesome. Yeah, and one more question. I just I recently read one of my friends' LinkedIn article. He started as a writer. Then there is a place where he realized that, okay, there is no more space to grow beyond that. Yes.
Yeah, I read it. It was actually a very. I've never worked with him, but I felt it was a very well put out like a note, right? Looks like he started off as a technical writer. Just giving context for the audience, he started off as a technical writer at Freshdesk, and actually he was at Zoho. He came to Freshdesk, and then he realized that, you know what, the role of technical writing has a ceiling, right? And then how do you kind of grow into another role becomes a little difficult if you just keep putting your heads down on that. I'm a strong believer of this concept called being a T-shaped marketer, right? No marketer is going to be able to know every segment of marketing, right? I might not be so there are only 2 to 3 things that I will call myself an expert in. Probably something that I'll be able to know at least top 90% of most of the marketers, and all the other things, even if I know 30 to 40%, if I understand how they work. So where you're deep in like one particular vertical or understanding of marketing, and then even if you have like decent amount of understanding in all the other like spaces, right? Even design for that matter, a marketer needs to have a good understanding of design, right? Yes. And something that I tell Karthi every single time is, the irrespective of whether how well we are able to put out any content or event or things like that, if the design looks shoddy, right, the entire event itself looks shoddy, right? So it's important for the design to kind of coexist with the marketing efforts that are going in. And it's important, like I don't think a lot of the Indian SaaS companies actually invest in visual design as much as they should be. And earlier at Freshworks, a lot of the times I used to, we realized most of our designers were held up with something or the other, I used to play around with Sketch and create my own block covers. I didn't necessarily depend on them. So, and like a lot of other things, I was like very self-dependent. So that actually helped understand business better, right? Like saying, okay, you know what, this is why this is being linked to this. This is why this influences this part of the business, right? So it is important for you to become a T-shaped marketer, right? Like, and irrespective of whether which role you're currently at, right? See how it will take you to some of the further steps. And no one has a very linear path curve, right? It's always very it's a very zigzag curve, according to me. If they believe that they have a linear curve, they're too early in their career. It's going to be a very zigzag curve. But just my thought on that is just put your head down, execute really, really well, and somewhere or the other, life takes care of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, because when I'm in design, I just started out, but I always used to have this thought for almost like 8-10 months now, because design is always a function. It works under either product or marketing. I mean, of course, I'm into product now, but of course, it works under them. Like, you don't have say in the table. I mean, the business table, right? So, I mean, like, I used to have whether do I have, go beyond something. So I always has this. Even I saw a few of the other marketeers who started into something, maybe into 3 to 5 years in their career, but confused what to do after that. So yeah, I thought this would be the right question to ask.
Another, just like a very basic advice, right? And it's not, once you've done a couple of things, it's okay to pivot sometimes, right? Like if you feel like, hey, you know what, like I've had someone who was into sales for about 6-7 years, wanting to move into marketing. And I think it takes a lot of courage to be able to just pick a new, you're going to be like a fresher, just that you'll have to identify that, okay, you know what, I am going to be close to a fresher and pick this problem up. I have business understanding, but I necessarily need not have marketing understanding, and try out the other parts of it. So it's okay to pivot. It might not be the easiest of decisions, but it's okay to pivot.
Right. So yeah, I think we are doing this for a very long time. I'll try to finish it as app. But about events, like what will be your 3 takeaways for while doing this for last 1-2 years? And I think you used that particular. You're saying that's an engine that's working very well. And like, what will be your like 3 takeaways by doing events?
I think okay, just before the 3 takeaways, events is not an every company's game, right? Like I think as soon as like I've had a lot of founders reach out to me asking, saying, "Hey, how do we replicate this?" Right? Like, and it's not going to be that way because I actually made a LinkedIn post about this sometime like a couple of weeks ago, saying, "Is events even a right thing for you?" Right? Like from a demand channel standpoint. But I think I don't probably have my thoughts very well structured, but I'm going to give it a shot, right?
Yeah.
The events that you run, right, is equal to the brand value, right? So the experience that people have when they receive your email, they probably want to show up to your event, even at the parking lot or even at the dinner table or let's say or at the booth or anything is very very equivalent to the brand, right? So it could be things, very small details matter a lot, right? So how well are you able to give them the parking details, or how are you able to collect their say if you're hosting a dinner, right? Just collecting their preference options and things like that. This is purely from a, hey, how do you want them to feel after that event? Is a very very important piece that a lot of marketers don't necessarily think of, because it's like equivalent to your website, right? Like if they come to your website and if you want them to have a good flow, or if you want them to use the product and want them to have a good flow, it's very similar as what you're going to expect them to have at an event, right? Like when you go to an event and you have a very good time, you're going to remember that. And we've had like a lot of people who not necessarily been our customers, but have actually referred people saying, hey, you know what, I had a great time. Here are 2 other like friends who might be interested in Spendflo, right? So we've had like a lot of very ripple effect from our events. So the experience is equal to brand is my first takeaway, right?
Is there anything called event experience?
Come again?
Is there anything called event experience out there? I'm just.
There is something called event experience. Yeah, we should.
I think it will.
Yeah, it may come out very little later. Once, I think when someone sells into that category is when they'll probably put that out. Right? Like till then, no one decides to coin that term. I think the second is it is a lot of manual effort, right? Like to run an event, it is not a very scalable function immediately unless and until you have good playbooks, right? So good attention to detail and being able to execute it over and over and over and over again is very very important from an events as a marketing strategy standpoint. What I mean by that, let's say if you put say an ad campaign, right? You publish and it runs for some time, but then you have to go back, change it again, and things like that, right? It's an event, like for example, the number of small things that needs to be done for the event to get executed is a very large flow, right? Like probably go to an event marketer and ask them to explain the different steps in the event running process, and they'll be like, yeah, there'll be like at least 15-16 steps in it, right? So being able to execute that is, you need someone who has good attention to detail, who's able to pull them up on a daily basis and be able to execute. I think my take is it takes time for you to like execute it really really well. So give it the due respect at the due time, right? Like a lot of the founders will try running 1 or 2 events and be like, okay, we didn't see enough ROI and we're going to pull back on the events, right? It's not necessarily the case, but sometimes it might not just be events might not be the right thing for you from a channel standpoint. So that'll probably be my second. Yeah, I think third is I'll probably say, are you trying to this is going to be a mix of like, do you want it to be a, say, when you're running an event, right? Who are you targeting? Like, I mean, if you've not defined your persona really well, right? Say if you want CXOs at the table, right? You cannot do like a seminar or a workshop and be like, hey, 10 CFOs would show up, right? Because they have their own set of ego as well, right? Like, I mean, they'll be like, hey, why should I listen to another CFO? But you're gonna, like, if you're gonna target CXOs and if you're gonna have a CFO as a speaker, you're gonna get a lot more of the VPs and the directors, and not necessarily the C-suite, right? If you want the C-suite, you have to provide a very equal, like a round table or an experience sort of a format. Just these knowing, hey, what will they respond to, what will your prospects or end users react to is a very important measure in this process. You cannot just pick a format and be like, yeah, this is the format we would want to execute on this. Play around, experiment with different formats. We recently hosted a pickleball game in San Francisco, right? We never thought we'll be doing that, but I think the format actually worked for finance leaders. We had like at least 7 to 8 people show up for it, and it was a very low cost initiative. But then we decided to run it. Yeah, like in the US.
Okay.
It's not, I don't want to reveal the exact number, but yeah, it was not a very expensive affair.
Can you give me like some rough number, how much it takes to host a dinner, like 10 member dinner? Yeah,
it would be about $2,500 to $3,000, $3,000 roughly.
$3,000.
Yeah,
that's it.
Depends on the venue. I'm giving you an average number. You can pick a very expensive place and go for $7,000, $6,000 as well. But you can also pick a very normal place and host it for $1,500 max. Yeah, there seems to be a little bit of delay on my side. I don't know if it was from video standpoint, but yeah, it's okay.
I think it's good now.
Yeah.
So do you think, like, I'm just assuming that you said like you have north of 100 customers. Just like randomly calculating, but for every event you are getting 2 people on board into the pipe. Like, is that almost the right number? I'm saying
it's varied based on different events. Some events have been a huge hit. Some events have been a flop for us. Like, I'll give you an example, right? We hosted an event in Chicago. Chicago is a great city to host. We were like, okay, yeah, I think it's a good business city. We'll have north of 20 people showing up. And we booked a very large private space in a restaurant. We had, I think, 26 RSVPs for the dinner. And on that day, actually, it turned out to be the hottest day in Chicago for that entire year, right? Okay. We had about 5 people from our side representing Spendflo as well as another company. We partnered with someone to do that, and we had only 4 people show up. Right, so we had more people from our side compared to even their side.
RSVP, but only 4 showed up.
Right, because it was the hottest day. No one, like, I mean, they couldn't step out because it was so hot, right? Like, it was as hot as probably at Dallas or in Austin. It was hotter than Chennai, by the way. Like, I mean, I come from Chennai, so Chennai is a very hot city, and it was hotter than that. And I couldn't necessarily walk from my hotel to the restaurant. Yeah, we've had, I think these are days that you have to anticipate and be prepared for it and say, okay, you know what, this day occurs. And how much can the marketer do on that front, right? Like, I mean, if it ends up to be that sort of a thing, you have to also start factoring in those sort of experiences, saying, okay, there are going to be, like, say, even on Google Ads, right? Like, some days you'll have a great, great CPC and things like that. But then suddenly on another day, it's going to be like, on another week or a month, you'll be like, shit, what just happened, right? Everything gets spent, but not necessarily did it really give you any results. So, yeah.
Right. So I think we'll end this with quick small questions. So what will be your go-to material to learn something? I mean, like any book suggestions, podcast, or
I think the very fundamental book that I really love is this book by Dale Carnegie. It's a very old classic. It's called How to Win Friends and Influence People. Right. I think from a marketing standpoint, it's important to know how to. I think it's just more about building relationships as well, right? Like it's not just from a sales standpoint; it's from a marketing standpoint as well. What will resonate? What will they appreciate? Right? I think that book is a classic book from a just overall business standpoint. I think I've read a lot more business books, not necessarily marketing books. I think I really appreciated at least this was long back, but Peter Thiel's 0 to 1 was a very good book to understand. There were a couple of other books as well. I think now I've become more of a audiobook / podcast person. I think whenever there's a good interview, like by any any VC out there who's interviewing a founder or any of the other folks who like the 20-minute VC guy does good interviews with people. I think I've started appreciating some of those longer format, like 1 hour deep dives into certain topics, and that works out pretty well. So yeah, more of a podcast / video person compared to books. But
any newsletters?
I just because that
recently become like almost for last 1-2 years I become a newsletter person. I used to read a lot during COVID, then got introduced to Ken, but not now stopped reading Ken, but I just have like bunch of subscriptions. So I'm not
I think I've outgrown newsletters. Earlier, I used to be a huge fan of some of the newsletters out there. Yeah, like a bunch of them actually from a SaaS standpoint. I don't remember some of them right now, but like good newsletters. But now I just like don't necessarily even check that side of the email. If it comes under the promotions or the updates tab, I generally leave it over there.
Right. So yeah, we'll end this with one parting advice for marketeers out there. So what will be it?
I think it's important to stay curious, be willing to learn new things. Today, I honestly learn a lot from my team, right? Like every single time they figure something out, it's mostly them teaching me things rather than a lot of me teaching them. And I don't think I also, it's important. It's not that I teach them a lot of things, right? Like in especially from a work environment standpoint, it's important to set the stage for marketers to be able to figure out and learn things, right? So any marketer out there today, not everyone has done everything and proved themselves. So what you have is an amazing stage to experiment, play around at actually someone else's cost, right? So you are responsible. I'm not saying you're not, but just that you get to play around, you get to experiment, you get to try new initiatives and look at it saying, okay, is it going to work? Is it not going to work, right? So take those opportunities and be willing to take big bets and experiment. I think you get. I mean, anyone will do really well.
Got it. Okay, this is one more last question. So, who is the next person I should host in this podcast?
Next person, okay.
Who you can introduce me to? Yeah.
What are you looking for, a marketer, or are you looking for? It could be anyone, is it?
Founder, operator. Founder / operator.
Founder, operator. I have a lot of names now. I'm just worried about like pointing into one person and getting into trouble with the others. But I think it'll probably be Sri Krishnan from Rocket Lane. Sri Krishnan Ganesan is the CEO of Rocket Lane. I think he might be very busy though, but like a very someone who I have a lot of respect for from a founder standpoint. very curious person. So yeah, I think I don't know whether he'll appreciate accept the invite, but yeah, I think he'll be a good add to this. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Nivas. Thank you for the
Cool.
time. I think
Thank you.
it will be really useful for other marketers out there.
Yeah.
And yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, Sudarshan. I really enjoyed it.